Welcome back to another episode. Today's topic is grades. When's the last time you got a grade? Hopefully, not too long ago, because grades are excellent for feedback. But when we're in school, when we get grades, we get those, every quarter, every semester, every year. And they essentially represent feedback on how we actually did during that academic year. So grades, they're feedback. That's all they are. They're feedback on how you're actually doing in school, a college, or any particular program in general. The stage that you are in a process is actually a definition that I actually prefer. Because usually when you're going through grades, you're in elementary school, and you go up through middle school and high school, you go through grades 1 through 12, right? So it's progress. You're moving up the ranks. But when most folks think of grades, they think of the grade you actually get when you're in a particular grade. What's the letter grade that you get? Do you get A, B, C, D, E, or, the dreaded F, right? So that's what most people actually think about with grades. So why is that important? Well, many people, and when I say many people, I'll take society at large, believes that good grades are a key to success and bad grades mean you won't amount to much. And that belief can be disastrous because what it does is when you have a belief, you have behaviors that are associated with that belief. And if you believe that good grades are the key to success, you encourage everyone to get good grades and you don't necessarily focus on the things that will allow them to be successful. You consider, let's say, grades being that specific thing that, okay, if you get good grades, then you're set. You're in good shape, right? But again, that's feedback. But what's disastrous about it is that it puts labels on people. So if someone's getting good grades, the labels start going that, oh, you're so smart because you get good grades, right? And when people get good grades and they get labeled as smart, they don't want to lose that label, right? If someone called you smart, you don't want to be smart one day and then not smart the next. So as a result, you have a different behavior. You want to keep that label or keep that status. So in keeping that status, you may not want to make a lot of mistakes. You might actually kind of fear mistakes. And when you do that, all of a sudden you put yourself in a comfort zone so that you keep getting called smart and you don't have to worry about that label kind of disappearing. So that can be disastrous because you stop making mistakes. You actually stop learning when you stop making mistakes. And that's not what you want to do. You want to learn as much as you possibly can because that's what's going to allow you to be successful. So that's how labels can be disastrous in that sense. And the same idea goes for bad grades. If someone doesn't get the best grades, they'll be like, oh, you know what? You're dumb. That's just as bad, right? Because all of a sudden that person's self-esteem drops. Or they're just like, I don't want that label, but if people call me it, it must be true. So then all of a sudden there's this domino effect in their life of, well, if I'm a dumb person, then I'm not going to try. I'm not going to give it my all because I know I'm going to fail. And that's just as bad, right? So success could mean that you don't make mistakes anymore, so you don't learn anything else. And being called dumb means you're not even going to try anymore, right? So you have those two extremes, and that's horrible. And in order to kind of get out of that mindset, the whole idea is, you're special, you're unique, but you have to understand how you're special and how you're unique and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. Everybody has them, but we shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes, and we shouldn't be thinking that everything we're going to do is going to fail, right? So we kind of have to get that out of our mindset. If it's insinuated that you're not good at something, then you'll never be good at it. That's essentially what grades can sometimes do, or the mindset that can be curated as a result of them. And that's not the idea that you want to have. If you haven't figured out something, it doesn't mean you'll never figure it out. It just means you haven't figured it out yet. So anytime you get in that mindset of, you know what, they say I'm not good at this, and you know what, I think about that a little bit, and it sounds like I'll never be good at it, don't get on yourself like that. You just haven't figured it out yet. If you keep at it, I guarantee you'll figure it out. Because a lot of folks quit much earlier than when they actually get to a solution. So if you can be someone that's persistent, you're going to be successful. Because that just means you're not going to quit. You're just going to keep going. And then on the other side, if you get called a label, dumb or whatever, and it insinuates that you're less than your potential, you have to be able to block that out. This is where the thick skin aspect comes in. A lot of people are going to say things that are not going to help you. If it's something that doesn't help you, ignore it. It's not the truth. The truth is whatever you believe. So if you believe that someone says you're smart or someone says you're dumb, and that's the belief that you have, that's what's going to send you out in whatever road you're in or you're on. But if you just look at that as feedback, as far as, hey, you know what? Someone said I'm smart, so I must have a skill in this area that treats me well, but I can still improve on that. So even though I may be smart, I know I can be smarter, right? So that's the whole idea of, okay, I can still make mistakes, and regardless of losing that label, I can still get better at being who I am and doing what I do. So grades are feedback to improve on. Just because you got a good grade or a bad grade, that is a circumstance. You can always do better, you can always do worse. But you can always change whatever, your environment is. You can always change how you actually performed. But the biggest thing is it's feedback. It's nothing less, it's nothing more. So why are grades important? Well, I'm not going to say they're not important because they are feedback. But sometimes we put too high of a rating on grades. And one example of that is college and universities. Usually, if you get good grades, that means you can get into a great college or great university. Because those organizations have bars that are very high. And if you want to get there, again, you have to know what the requirements are to actually be able to get in. But that is not an indication of future success. That's what society says is future success, right? But you have to identify what it is that you actually want, because it's your success you're fighting for. You're not fighting for society's success. And those two aren't necessarily going to match up. There are so many qualities or successful behaviors that people have, especially folks that have done incredible, extraordinary things in their lifetimes, and they were not on tests, right? Now, you can figure out what these behaviors are, but you have to look in different places than most people actually look. So grades aren't necessarily that barometer where if you want to be successful, then you know what? I'm going to look at people with good grades. If you want to get good grades, you mimic people with good grades. If you look at people that have huge results, you need to figure out what behaviors they have to get those huge results. And grades may not be one of those things that whatever your mentor or whatever that person you're following actually did. So figure out, whose path you're actually going to follow that ended up where you actually want to be. And when you actually start looking at that, you're going to start learning about other things outside of just the grades aspect that will actually help you along that journey and that path. And then grades themselves, usually they tell you, let's say, the aptitude in a particular area, but it's a single spectrum. It's not multiple spectrums. And you have so much latitude as far as where your skill set may actually be. Just for the fact that you may do good or bad in school, it's not an indication of what your strengths actually are. It just might indicate that, okay, in regards to intellectual intelligence, you need a little bit more work there. But you may actually have some talents and some skills outside of that that can make you very successful at something you actually love doing. So that's something to consider. So the story I'm actually going to share with you today is making the grade when I was actually in college. And I can remember being in a class, I was an undergrad in a graduate class, right? So I was with folks a little bit older, a little bit more mature than I was. And the class was called Distributed Embedded Systems. And the whole idea was that we had a capstone project that we had the entire semester to put together. And it had to be an information technology system. So you're talking about computers and systems and putting something in place to solve a problem. Well, it just so happens that very same semester, I was playing hockey and I fractured my ankle and I was on crutches. And it was not very easy for me to get around. So when that happened to me, the first thing that I was thinking of is, if I can have a solution to help someone in my situation that has limited mobility, that would be hugely helpful, not only to myself, but to other folks that have faced those types of challenges before. So that's the system that we actually decided to put together. Now, with that, I had limited mobility. So for one reason or another, I was elected the leader of my group, which wasn't really expecting that, but I had to lead the charge over everything, and I couldn't get around very easily. So I actually had to enlist the help of my roommate, who I actually didn't get along very well with at the time. I kind of had to, suck up all of the anxiety or whatever else I had in actually asking, and just go up and ask that, hey, I could really use your help with this project. I know you're a computer science major. There's some skills that you had that could really assist me as far as some recommendations. What do you believe I should actually use to help put the system together? And fortunately, that worked out very well, which I'm very appreciative of, and thank you for that. So again, it helped me step outside of my comfort zone and actually asking for help, which is something we all need to be able to do, especially if we want to get to the end goal that we have in mind. And then, in addition to that, I also had to fill a gap for a project team member that was doing no work. So I'm the one that's on crutches, right? And I'm doing as much work as I possibly can. And I have folks that have all these abilities and everything else. And I had one teammate that just didn't do anything. So that was a struggle, because in life, if someone's not pulling their weight, you have to still find a way to get it done, regardless of them pulling their weight or not. So I had to take on some extra work and trying to help fill some of the gaps. But everything came to a true head when we had to do a demonstration of the system we were putting together. And during the entire semester, I got no input from that team member and didn't have enough time with all my other classes to really do all of their work. So I had to put together a very, very interesting hack at the end of the semester, where essentially we had to have a server that was up and running, just like a website, and we had to show something called graceful degradation. So in other words, if something destroyed the website, that it could pop right back up without any problem. So we need to have something called redundancy, and that's what the teammate that we had was supposed to be doing, but he didn't fill the gap for that. So I had a very clever hack where I had a single database that had all the information, and I had two websites, and each website pointed to the database. And so when we actually killed one website, we just took the one website down, but the database was still alive. And we had the other website to actually show that, oh, you can still connect to the database and the system's still running. So even though that was not the desired solution, it was a solution that worked. And I had to come up with something quickly. So I think I got a B in that class, right? I was hoping for an A, but I got a B. But the big thing from that is, do I remember the grade that I got in that class? I remember the grade, but what's more important is the experience I actually had to go through and what it allowed me to do as far as building and maturing as an engineer. So what are grades? Grades are feedback. That's all they are. Don't let that dictate who you are or what you're going to do, in the sense of, take this label or take that label. No. Grades are just feedback. You still have to have a mind of what you're going to do and how you're going to move forward. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.